Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us, taking the time out of your schedule. We are using a new program this time around, and we have the help of the KA staff in order to put this off. So I trust you have found the link and we're able to join okay. And we have a different topic for today, a little different in the sense that we are not having another financial professional join us, but someone who can certainly minister to us as financial professionals, that's for sure. So just want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be here, because I know there are lots of places that you could be and spend your valuable time today. So we appreciate you for being here. And we do have participants registered from sea to sea, from Newfoundland to Victoria, BC, St. John's, and even central Newfoundland this time around. So, and obviously a lot of points in between as well. So I want to encourage you. This is a little different than the platform we have been using, but there is a chat function where you can certainly chime in to the conversation today. And we will actually be doing the webinar in 3 different sections. So there will be an opportunity for you to respond in each of those. So I'd encourage you certainly to engage. And if you are not a member of Kingdom Advisors, because I recognize there are some joining us today who are not members of KA, but we are a professional organization, an organization made up, I guess, of professional financial advisors. And you might be interested in connecting in a deeper way. And we will help you incorporate your faith into your practice and to the advice that you provide to your clients. And it'll actually help you have a realization that you can fulfill the Great Commission in the work that you do every day. So if you are a member of KA and you're joining us today, I want to explain the difference just very briefly of what we do here on this webinar versus our study groups, because there are study groups that take place all across the country. We have about 12 to 15 now every month, and we are meeting virtually, but that is an opportunity to connect and rub shoulders with other financial professionals across the country. And as the scripture says, iron sharpens iron. So it's actually an opportunity for us to be sharpened and become better at our craft. And that's really what that's all about. Our study groups also provide often CE credits. So we can provide a CE credit through FP Canada or Advocates. So they recognize, even though our content is biblical, but it actually provides wisdom for you to operate in your practice every day. So I'd encourage you, check it out, be a part of it. Feel free to message me as well, and I can connect you to one if you're not engaged in one already. And at this time, I want to say that our topic this month is on resilience. And I just got an emergency alert earlier today that basically tells us that we really need to be resilient, because the alert said, and I'm here in Ontario, a stay-at-home order is in effect. Only leave home for essential purposes such as food, healthcare, vaccines, exercise, or work. It's challenging for us. It's challenging for our clients. So I would say to you that this topic is very, very relevant today. So I want to bring in my guest, Dan Reinhardt. Dan is a friend of mine, and Dan, we go back probably about 20 years, at least that long. And
yes.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you on the call today. So I want to give a brief introduction to Dan. When he was 43, he was a leader of a large and growing organization and tired. That's interesting. The research says that if you are 40 plus, which I am, by the way, there's a good chance you have reached your apex and will flatline for the second half of your life. He was determined not to join that stat. And a doctorate later, Dan Reinhardt launched the Crest Leadership Center. He's passionate to help midlife adults get clarity so their second half is their best half. And I will say, Dan, you were there for part of my first half and actually encouraged me as I transitioned into my second
Mm.
half. And I was a
Yep.
little older than 43, which, according to my math as a financial advisor, that means I might be living longer than you if we are doing this in halves.
That's a good
But
idea right there.
I'll take that. I'll take that anyway. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, Dan, welcome, and I want to enter you into the conversation. And if you want to, I'd love for you to give a little brief addition to that about yourself and the transition to start before we get into our topic a little bit deeper on resilience.
Yes, sure. I'd be glad to do that. I actually went to Bible school in the States, and that's where I met my wife. And right after Bible school, I went to Israel and did a master's degree in Jerusalem there on the backgrounds of the Bible. Then I entered Christian ministry, being a pastor for 22 years. Church grew from 270 to 1,200 and building program and multiple staff. And it was a wonderful run. But boy, by 43, I was tired. And I said, Lord, I'd rather have a timeout than a burnout. And he provided a timeout. So I was able to then pursue that doctorate and discovered that even though most people will flatline in their second half, it does not have to be that way. However, you do have to make some intentional shifts. And you have to do that intentionally and with perseverance in order to make the internal shifts to flourish in the second half. And that's what I've been passionate about ever since. Been doing that with students all across Canada and, in fact, other nations as well. So that's what
awesome.
has really given me a reason to really want to engage with things like this. And I believe that this topic of resilience is especially important for two reasons. Many of your guests here are probably over 40. So they need resilience just because you're over 40, you need to have resilience. And then with this COVID on top, oh my goodness, we've got to know what to do, how to be able to move forward on this. So that's what I'm glad to share with you today. Yeah,
that's awesome. And I think for the listeners or viewers on our call today, it's not only them, but it's also the people they come in contact with, their clients, their customers that they deal with. So we need to be resilient even for them as well.
Yes.
So
that's right.
Can you, first of all, Dan, define really what resilience is, if you would?
Well, let's just share my screen. I got it on the screen there. I think that'll be a good way to do it. We're going to talk about this resilience here. Now, you can see that nice. That's good. So let's look at some definitions here. So the first definition is that it's the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, some kind of an internal toughness to be able to do this. So we want to be able to recover in spite of what's going on around us. The second aspect of this definition is it's the ability of a substance or an object to spring back into shape. It's like, the pressures of everything that we're under have distorted us, and we're actually not operating in our normal self. People under stress act differently than they normally are. And that means you're kind of bent, you're stuck, or you're pressured by what's going on around you. And that in turn makes you not your normal self. And so resilience is the ability to come back into shape. And that's an important one for us today when we feel the pressure of everything going on around us.
Yeah, and how quickly are we able to come back in shape? I guess when we hit a challenge, even thinking about sports, the sports analogy, when you suffer a loss in sports, with a team, it's kind of rebounding. That idea of rebounding for the next game.
Yeah. Right. So let me just share with our viewers what our plan is for the day. We'll put my screen back up again. We're going to do this in 3 sections. The first section is we are going to talk briefly about recognizing the load that you are carrying, a bit of the uniqueness of that, just to affirm some of those things. And then in the second section, we're going to talk about the principles that underlie renewal. And if you don't get these 2 principles, you actually won't have resilience. So we're going to make sure you get those underlying principles. And then the third section is, and then how do you live out of this? How do you actually live in a way that you have abundance? Jesus said that we should live out an abundance of life within us. So this is what we want to do today, is to look at these three. So Lorne, you're going to be watching the chat window there for questions, right?
Yes, I am. Absolutely. There's some coming in. So as Dan walks through the first segment here, feel free to jump in with comments, questions as we go. And some of you have said there is no sound, and thank you for others who have jumped in and helped others figure out how to get sound. So I think that's working well. One of the first questions is, are we able to get the presentation, Dan? So you can certainly address that. Irene says, I'm 74 and living more fully now than ever. So
wonderful.
So that's
great.
Encouraging to hear as we start.
Yeah, you do not have to flatline in the second half. And she's an example right there. Way to go.
Yep. And she's a certified holistic cancer coach and educator.
Wow.
So at 74 and still going. So that's encouraging to hear.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. Well, let's just start with that first section, recognizing our particular load that we got. And in our business load in this particular time, we have got some very unhelpful things happening. We are restricted to from in-person customer service. We're not able to do those kinds of things. And our supply chain has been disrupted, and there is a disrupted delivery that goes along with that as well. And that in turn has really done a terrible thing for our cash flow, which means that's not coming in like we used to have. And yet our expenses continue to be the same. And, they still go out. And then if you are a business owner and you've got payroll, oh my goodness. That's a real strain, because now, how do where does your responsibility land as far as these people that are depending upon your business, that they can actually continue living? And boy, the stresses of this combination here that we're looking on the screen has just put it over the top for a lot of people. And I imagine,
I know business has changed quite a bit, Dan, I think in cases like this, because I don't know if advisor meetings have slowed down. They have actually maybe accelerated, but just in a different way. And a lot of people are zoomed out instead of zoomed in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So carry on.
Well, what's good for your Kingdom advisors is that your work does not have to stop. You just have to adapt and do it a different way, like using Zoom, learning how to do this kind of thing. So you're fortunate in that you're not directly connected to supply chain stuff, because a lot of yours can be done virtually over there. And yet your clients are stressed. They're a business.
And it is an adjustment in how you got to adapt and find a different way to do what you've done. And, companies have adapted certainly in that way to, even for signatures, because of course, when you're dealing with finances, signatures are a requirement. So how do you do that electronically at a distance and so on? So little things that, you may not necessarily think about. But all of those things can certainly add stress as well.
Yeah, it just adds to your load. You've already got enough load, and then this comes on top. But good for many of you that have made it the shift in the last number of months and learned how to do the online stuff. So maybe you're feeling a bit of that coming off, and that you're a little more available and recognizing how to use this. So that is just showing that when you're under stress, you can adapt, but you have to be willing to adapt. You have to be willing to lean in and to learn and to try different ways. That's all part of this whole thing of resilience. Is you're not denying the fact that there are challenges around you, but you're leaning into it to figure out, okay, what do we do then? How do we handle this?
And
so
Dan,
that's happening.
around the different stages of life, is it more challenging as you're older to make that to adapt, I guess, is
Yeah.
probably the best. It seems like the younger you are, you can adapt quicker. Is that the case?
Well, it is. In fact,
Any thoughts on that?
we'll put the screen back up. I got a little diagram here that came out of my doctoral research here that I think you can see the cursor on the screen here. Can you? Let me just see if I can get my cursor to come over here. Do you see the cursor there?
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Okay, so this represents the decades of a person's life here. Most leaders and most people will start out well, and we're younger, we're able to just progress, and our leadership develops as we come along. But when we get to the second part of life here, only a minority will keep flourishing. Here's the stats. Only 25% will actually keep flourishing, because 75% will actually flatline or flounder. And it really shows up after age 40. I tell you, Lorne, when I saw this in my research, that was like a bomb went off in my mind. Like, I'm 43, which means I'm just starting this. And I want to make sure I stay on that green line. But if I don't intentionally do something to shift, I will probably end up in the majority. And that's not a fun place.
And one of the thoughts that I had, Dan, at that age was that my best years were behind me. And that life forward is a not a dread, but it wasn't something as much to be looked forward to, because I felt that my years of productivity were behind me instead of in front of me. Is that a typical thing, or?
Well, because the stats are that the majority will be sitting right here along this line, that it's a kind of a cultural thought that, after 40, you just kind of downhill from there. And that may be true for a lot of people, but it does not have to be true for you. You can flourish. And so when you're in this COVID stress, you're right. When you're younger, your adaptability is there. You've got natural strength. You've got reserves in your body that you're able to draw on. But as you get older, you can't draw on those natural reserves. In fact, a little bit later in this presentation, we'll show you exactly what those reserves are and how that affects what's happening here. You're right. Before 40, you've been adapting all along. When you start out in your career path, you have to learn what it's all about, and you're in a big, steep learning curve. But after you've done that for a couple of decades, and then you're asked to change again, it's a little harder to change.
So to flourish in the second half, do you necessarily change careers to make something like that happen, or is it kind of more discovering your why? Like what brings you to a place of flourishing instead of flatlining?
Yeah, very good question. Well, as we get to the second half of our life, one reality sits in, and that is, I don't have forever. Half my life's gone already. Good grief. I better pay attention here. And it could be that you're in some kind of a vocation that you've done now for 15, 20 years, and you're quite frankly bored. You're tired of this, and you want something that connects a little deeper with, what you want your life to be about. So this brings up these midlife questionings that are stirring in everybody. Somewhere between the 40 to 55, everybody will go through this, like, okay, what do I really want to do the rest of my life? And do I really want to do this, whatever this is? Do I want to really do this the rest of my life? Or is there something else that's stirring deep within you? And those are the midlife stirrings, and the stirrings that happen in the second half that you got to pay attention to. And when you do that, you'll be looking deeper within as to what it is that you're really here for. What do you really want to do in life? That's the deep why question. And when you address that, you might discover that the particular career that you're in is not addressing that deepest need. And that's when a career change happens. Or it could be that you shift how you're doing what you are doing. And maybe you keep doing what you're doing as a way of funding your life, but then you start this other vision piece where you want to do this as a volunteer or in some kind of a charitable way. And that's what really fires you up. But you got to pay the bills with this. So people will do kind of a two-track thing on it. Or they'll just shift all the way to this second thing and boom, let's go.
But in either case, there is a shift. There's something that takes place. It may not necessarily be a career change,
right?
But it's a shifting as to how you do it. Or maybe even it's the why you do it. That changes, right?
Well, I'm thinking of your advisors there. Maybe they've been being a financial advisor for decades, but now what they're finding out through Kingdom Advisors is that you can actually add a purpose beyond just passing money on to your next generation. You can actually help people do something they've never thought of doing, and that is adding charity and God's work to this whole matter of financial management. And boy, now all of a sudden your advising has a purpose to it that's greater than just helping people set up their will and figure out their investments.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple of comments, Dan, that have come in. Steve has said, definitely feeling more stressed at this time. We have had to work more than ever before and change almost everything that we've been used to doing in this business. So it's an adaptation. Colleen says, most of my clients are doing well and just pacing this out. And I've taken advantage of the time to take courses and reassess my business model and processes.
Very good.
This has actually provided her some time, and it's I guess that's created some stress in and of itself, right? Roger says, I'm 60 and on the 25% line, I think.
Great. Fantastic.
So yeah. And Samaya definitely agrees with what Steve says. Lots of glitches and frustrations dealing with some clients that are stressed and need the in-person touch. But of course, we're not able to do that over the screen, right? These virtual hugs can only take you so far. And there is a question that's come in, Dan, and I don't know if you want to address this now or later, but I'll raise it now just in case. Just met with a client in their 50s whose husband passed away suddenly. Now she is wondering what's next, and it wasn't due to COVID. Would the course, which I know I'll get at the end, I'll get you to talk a little bit more about the course that you have, but would this course be helpful for someone like her?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, quite a few of our students, our clients, are those who have had a significant life shift that they didn't anticipate, didn't plan for, of course, and didn't want, like death of a spouse, break of a relationship, business going under. There's a number of things that can really shake you, and then it really makes you want to think, okay, what do I want to do next? That's exactly what we do with our program. Help people with that.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, let's move forward. I think you have some renewal principles.
I do. Yeah. So let's put that up on the screen there. If you're going to be resilient and you're going to be able to renew, there's a couple of things you've got to understand. And the first one actually was written by a man named Dr. Swenson. He wrote a book. Now, this is like 25 years ago he wrote this, called Margin. And when a book is still in print 25 years later, it means it's a good book. It's not a flash in the moment kind of a thing. He was a physician who noted that 80% of his patients coming to see him were complaining of physical ailments, but he could tell that the real reason they were stressed, they were ill, was because they were stressed. It was not directly a physical ailment. It was something deeper than that. And so he actually shifted his practice to helping people deal with what's causing all this problem. And he wrote this book called Margin. And margin meaning that there's, like when you have a page in a book, you need white space. You need margin around your text in order to be able to read this without stress. If you've ever read a book that has dense text all the way through and no margins, it's just hard to look at the page. So that was his metaphor. So in our life, he pointed out that we have an energy container within us. So let's use this picture here as a metaphor for the energy that you have within you. There's two kinds of energies. There's what we would call the shallow energies. And these shallow energies are the ones that you wake up in the morning, you feel great, you go to work and you work hard all day, and you come at night and you're tired. You go to sleep and you have a good rest and you wake up the next morning, man, I'm ready to go. And you go again. These shallow energies, they come off faster and they come back faster. That contrasts with the deeper energies. These shallow energies are the ones that you and I just do every day. And it's actually good to exert yourself and to actually expend the shallow energy and put it back. So it ends up being kind of a cycle like this. But here's the issue. If your day requires more energy of you than what is your natural shallow energy, then what you do is you dip into your deeper energies. And you have to pull from the deeper energies in order to make it work during the day. It's kind of like if your checking account, your daily checking account is working fine and you get your cash and you're doing okay, and then you hit a big expense one day, what you have to do is you have to dip into your savings account. You pull out of your savings account and put it into your checking account so you can make it work. Well, that's exactly what happens with the deeper energies. They are like an energy savings account. Now they come off slower.
That's certainly a place, when you reference finances, that's a great example of having margin as well. We need to have that margin so you can take a dip, and people who don't have margin tend to get in trouble. Right. So I think that example, the words on the page, the money in your bank account, I think two great examples. Even in our schedules, we need margin in our schedules sometimes. So that when I send out a webinar invitation, you're able to schedule it in.
Right, exactly.
If you don't have margin, you're too tight. You can't do it. You can't take advantage of those opportunities. So, there's all sorts of ways that we need the margin. But I love what you're sharing here about the deeper energies and tapping into this, because that's when our risk of burnout increases, correct?
Well, exactly. The burnout happens is because somebody has been accessing the deeper energies over and over again. It's kind of like your savings account. You can keep doing that for a while, but there will come a day when your savings account is done, and now you're in crisis. And that's what burnout is. It's when a person's been drawing from the deeper energy, and then they hit the point where your deeper energies are so low, your body begins to send signals to you that you had better do something because it's in crisis. And so you get memory lapses, or you lose your appetite, or you start binge eating, or you have short-term memory loss. You find yourself getting more irritable over little things that really shouldn't be. The phone rings. You don't want to even talk to anyone in that phone, or someone that wants your attention. You snap at them. This is not the normal you. This is the distorted you, that you're not acting your best. You're not acting your normal. And as a person, you need to be watching yourself, kind of like, standing beside yourself, watching how are you acting right now? And if you're not acting the right way, that means you need a timeout to think about your margins and what's going on with your deeper energies. And I would think, Lorne, that most people with their finances are fine until they begin to have some stress signals from their finances. And that's when they call Kingdom Advisors, right? So
how do you do that timeout practically? How does that work? Well, actually, and how long of a timeout do you take?
Okay, let's go back to our screen here. I want to show you that's the first principle, is that you have to understand this energy matter. The second one comes out of another book called The Power of Full Engagement. And here the authors say you have to manage energy, not your time. You know, for many years we thought you have to manage your time. Well, actually, no. It's your energy you gotta manage. In fact, these folks say that there's four kinds of energies that you need to be paying attention to. And I also put on the screen there a little. If you text that number there, we'll make a resource available to you. And friends, I hope the technology is right. If you don't get the right one coming to you, just email us back, and we'll send you a further ebook about this whole thing about midlife and what it's all about. Anyway, here's the four energies. So yes, Swenson said you need to pay attention to energy, but these next authors say that there's actually four kinds of energies. There's the obvious one, which is the physical one. And you notice that one. We've been talking mainly about that one. But there are other energies that we have to watch. There are the emotional energies. A person can be, you can be physically okay, but if your emotional energy is depleted, boy, that'll just pull everything down. And then there is the mental emotion, the mental energy, I should say, of dealing with something, trying to work really hard at things. Like some of your advisors said, they're working harder now than ever. Well, there's probably a bit of a physical part to that. There's an emotional element and there's a mental element of it. And when you're pulling on all three of those energies, you're going to feel it. But these authors also recognize that there's a fourth energy, and that is their spiritual energy. And we as believers know, boy, that's true. You know, if you're under a spiritual attack of some sort, or your spiritual energies are low, you're just going to feel it throughout your body. So there's four energies that we have to be watching, but we're integrated beings. So what can happen here is that if you are emotionally drained right out, it's going to pull on your physical energies. You're going to feel that depleted as well. And you probably won't think as well. So it's going to be pulling on your mental, and you're going to be feeling like maybe spiritually you're not hearing God anymore. You don't feel like worshiping him anymore. You're just kind of blah spiritually. And so these are all little indicators that there's been a depletion of spiritual or emotional, physical, mental energy.
It's interesting, Dan. Just think about the verse where it says, Luke 2:52, Jesus grew in wisdom, stature, and in favor with God and man.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the spiritual, the social, the physical, the emotional, the mental. It covers all of those things. I never really thought about that in light of renewing energies. But part of his growth physically, I think, was because Jesus seems to be the perfect example of a rhythm, which includes rest, and pulling himself away. And somebody is saying on the chat, I take a 15-minute nap. One person asked a question, what do you do when the distorted you shows up?
That's right.
And one of the, I don't know if it was a response exactly to this, was I like to take a 15-minute nap. So it's kind of one of the ways to pull yourself back, maybe pull yourself together. And I'm a napper as well. So maybe that's what I'll do after this call. I don't know. I was having naps because I'll be exhausted. But like, how much does that work to rejuvenate you and restore your energy?
Oh, yeah. I'm just reminded of another verse where it says, where Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and spirit. Four. And he delineated them: heart, soul, mind, and strength. So it's not just one thing. It's going to require a number of things in order to really love God totally. So that's really what this third section's about, is, well, how do you live from this abundance? Jesus said in John 10:10, I have come that you can have real and eternal life. Here's my scripture verse right up on, I had this sitting right on my bookcase here. I have come so they may have real and eternal life, more and better life than they ever dreamed of. That's the Message translation. And I
Yeah.
put that up there because that's what I want. And Jesus
Yeah.
said he came to offer that.
And many times we can look at that verse, Dan, and think, okay, that's thinking about life that we're going to have in the future, as opposed to our life here, right? But I certainly believe, as I'm sure you do, that when Jesus spoke about the abundant life, it is something that we should be living now, not just something we look
That's right.
forward to in the future. Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, exactly right. So just want to affirm that when it comes to living from abundance, there are some things we need to do to replenish.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just keep spending, your energies and think that by expending more, you're going to break through and everything's going to be great. Not likely. If you keep over expending, you are likely to crater. So how do we live from abundance? Well, here's the first thing I want to suggest to you, that you need people. And this is why COVID is such a hard thing, because it's cutting off the connection we have with people. And that is what's making it so very difficult for others. So you do have to figure out, is there a way that you can connect, even if it's Zoom or on the phone or over the fence or something? Make sure that you still have people in your life. Even though COVID restricts your motion, your ability to move around, get on that phone or talk with people here. And here's a frightening statistic. When they do the research about whether people have a good, close personal friend, there's not that many. Maybe up to 70% of people cannot say, I have got 3 people that I can call a close personal friend, that I can call day or night, anytime, and they're always there for me. People who know me not as a financial advisor or as a leader, they know me as me. And they know you, they know what you care about, what you cry about, what you laugh about. Those deep friends are very nurturing to a person's whole life. And if you don't have people like that, you need to ask the Lord to guide you to some who could be that for you. That's really important, actually. So let me go to the next one. Sabbath. Boy, this is an important one. When God created the world in 6 days and it rested on the seventh, that became the pattern. And that is the DNA of the universe, that if we work nonstop 7 days a week, you can do it for a while, but you have to pull in your deep energies to do that, and you'll deplete your energies. So the Sabbath idea, where you have a day where you don't look at your email, where you don't check the futures, or you don't look at your investments, you just completely unplug from all of that, and you do things that really rejuvenate your spirit and your soul. That's what Sabbath is about. And so worshiping the Lord, having time to read spiritual things, or to look at a good nurturing video. There's lots of YouTube videos on spiritual teachings out there. Lots of things you can do. So Sabbath is really important for the rhythm. Really important.
Yeah, it's interesting, and taking the time away from email is a challenging thing, because we all have devices like this that they're right there, and messages are coming in day and night. So actually taking a time where you're away from it can be challenging. And this is addictive, and we're in an industry where we feel many times like we need to respond when messages come in. So
to turn that phone right off after 9 p.m. every night would be a very good thing. I do that every night, turn it right off, so I'm not even tempted to look at emails. That's got to be done. You just need this break in order to take in, even with people. You probably have some people in your life that are like draining kind of people. They drain on your energy. You need to limit how often you're with them. Quite frankly, you have to have a break. Don't feel like you have to always be available for those people, because some kinds of people will just drain you dry. You're gonna have to put some boundaries up to say, I need some time to just rejuvenate and have connection with some really good friends that build in, and you feel rejuvenated after you're with those people.
Yeah. So at least once a week.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably even throughout your day, the idea of Sabbath, which is not a day necessarily, but taking time in your day. And again, going back to what you said about building margin into your schedule, is important throughout your day, because if you have, and I've been there, back to back to back meetings, it is completely exhausting. And you go home more exhausted than if there was a 15-minute gap in there.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. In fact, the recommendation is that when you're scheduling your meetings, always put 15 minutes between them. Minutes between your meetings, so that you can get up and leave and walk around, go get a drink, go to the washroom, walk outside. You just having a break for 15 minutes between meetings will be huge to keep your energy levels going.
Yeah.
And that's where sleep comes in as well. For us as human beings, it's interesting. God made the world so it goes dark for half the time. And if you don't have electricity and it's dark, like I grew up in India and my parents were missionaries there, so sometimes we didn't have power in the evenings. So when the sun went down at 6 o'clock and we turn on the candle or the lamp, you're good for about an hour, and then, good grief, are you ever sleepy? You're ready to go to sleep at 7 o'clock at night or 7:30. You're just like done. And there's something about our artificial lights that are keeping us awake longer. And so we end up burning more energy every day. Not a good idea. So you need to learn the importance of sleep and being able to make that a regular rhythm. And this is where naps come in. If you feel sleepy, feel tired, your body's telling you something. Your body's telling you you need a refreshment. So you could either get up from your desk and go for a walk. That can rejuvenate your energy. Or if you're over the age of 40, especially over 50, having a 20-minute nap can be a real great thing. I'm a napper as well. And so, you mentioned, Lauren, that after you have an intense meeting, like you have an intense webinar like this one, to schedule a time to just relax and take a break and go for a walk or take a nap is a very good way to steward your body. Very good.
Yeah. Just a comment from Samaya, which is interesting, going back to the phone comment. The phone has an off button. It's my favorite button to push.
Good.
And she also commented, I like the comedy and MC breaks at the KA conference that we had, which was a 3-day online event.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that this was very challenging, and it was expressed so by the comedian because it did serve as a break from session after session. Then you bring comedy into the routine. And he was like, I'm not sure anybody is going to laugh. And even if you do laugh, I'm not going to know. But it's interesting. Until Samaya mentioned that comment, I had never really seen that as a rest. But it actually is a rest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why even if when you have Zoom meetings, don't go for a long time on Zoom meetings. Most people can handle maximum 60 minutes like we're doing, and then you have to have a break. So when I do Zoom meetings where I do one after another, like with the same group, we'll go for 60 minutes and then we have a 15-minute break. And then we come back for another 60 minutes. And with that rhythm of 60, 15 off, 60, 15 off, you can actually maintain. So this rhythm of sleeping, of engaging and spending energy, you have to purposely withdraw and refresh. And it's the rhythm of engaging and then purposely disengaging to rest, and then engaging and disengaging. If you learn that rhythm, you can maintain your energy levels much better. You can be more resilient. But if you engage and then keep engaging. And then you engage past being tired. You'll get distorted, and the real you will not be there. You'll be this snippy, difficult, prickly person to be around, and no one wants to be with you.
Yeah. And we don't want that.
No. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that there's more than just sleeping. Let's go beyond. There's retreat. The Bible talks about seasons. And in fact, in the Old Testament, they had 7 feasts, 7 every year, like a feast time. Like this is at least a day or sometimes 10 days of feasting, of doing something like not doing your farm work, going to Jerusalem, having 10 days of Passover. You know, there's a real rhythm to this thing of going on retreat. We would call it retreat. And if you've never done a personal retreat where you just go away to a retreat center for probably 2 days is the best. Or actually, no, the best is 3 days. If you go there and you go to sleep, you usually sleep hard that first night. You wake up and you got a whole day. You're going to be at retreat. Then you have another night's rest, and then you have another half day. That can be a lifesaver, and it brings you back into perspective in beautiful ways. So I want to encourage you to think about having personal retreats like that.
Yeah, and that's good, I assume, for you and your spouse to do, or is that something you do alone? Or
well, I would suggest you need, if you're going to go with your spouse, you need to purposely have times separately.
Right.
Because if you're just with your spouse all the time, there's a certain amount of being on all the time. You're thinking about the other person, you're having conversation, you're not really unplugging. So like when my wife and I do this, we'll go to a Christian retreat center. We'll say, okay, we had breakfast. Okay, hon, we'll see you at lunch. And we go different places. She'll go on a walk, or I'll be in a different building, and we purposely want to have alone time. And then you come back for lunch, and then we're apart again for the afternoon. So you need this alone time to have it as a proper retreat.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same idea as retreating from your clients, from an advisor perspective, which we do that every day, on a regular basis. Then we re-engage. So that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And then there's one more. You got to keep learning. That keeps your mind fresh. One way to mentally stimulate your mind is make sure you're reading broadly. Have some reading that has nothing to do with your work. Good, well-written books that are not work related can be a real retreat for you emotionally and mentally to be in there. Some place to learn. Just learning new ideas can be very mentally stimulating. So those are some ways that you can replenish the energies that God has entrusted to you to steward.
That's great. So, really, really appreciate some very practical tips there and things that we can incorporate into what we do. And that's awesome. I want to give you a few minutes at the end. Let me just have a quick review of the comments here and see what we have. Yeah, amazing stuff. Great session. Roger says, my wife likes her alone time. That's why she sends me to the office every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric is asking a good question. Where do you find good book titles that are not dark?
Okay. Actually, I can suggest you look at the Pulitzer Prize list.
Okay.
Those have been vetted as being really well-written books. Then you can also, once you look at a title and something looks interesting, you can go online and say review of and put the book title in there, and you'll hear people's comments about this book. So just because it's Pulitzer Prize doesn't mean it is not dark. And I don't like reading dark books either. No, I want books that are insightful or interesting or learning, and that are really helpful. And the Pulitzer Prize list is a very good place.
Good. Any other questions, by the way? Feel free to jump in. Now is a good time to do it. I did want to go back to an earlier comment that I kind of missed in our discussion, but I did want to mention it. From Daryl, he says, I really appreciate the 3 leadership paths. Very true. If we define leadership as influence,
Right.
it would seem that over time, a leader's role may change, but their influence could actually increase even if they are less busy. That's a
Very good.
powerful comment.
Excellent. Excellent. Right on. That is part of the second half shift. How do you shift from being the one that does all the work to actually influencing more people? Yeah, that's a shift.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So feel free to add your comments and your questions. Dan, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit, talk to us a little bit about Crest leadership. And we did kind of introduce it, but flourishing is a big deal and a key word. So I'd love for you to walk us through a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. Well, it's birthed out of this passion to help people flourish in the second half, not flatline, to have your best half as your second half. If the first half's been good, it can be better. If the first half's been hard, the second half doesn't have to be that hard. There's ways to actually do this, but it will require an intentional shift. So I've designed this program we call the Crest Leadership Program, and actually you can earn, like you see here, a diploma if you want out of it, or even a master's in Christian leadership. And what we do is we give you a structured path to think through your life again. So there's 6 major times we gather people together, and each of them has a theme to it. And over the course of about 18 to 20 months, you will think through your life. So the first time we get together, it's about taking a hold of your life, looking at your where you at in your life. What's your story all about? Second one is driving forward with your values, so you understand what really motivates you. And then the third one is getting a grip on your strengths and quit trying to fix your weaknesses all the time. Let's get on with your strengths. Let's take a positive vein on this one. And look at how God's gifted you and go with that. Don't try to be anybody else. And then number 4 is investing wisely in your relationships. If you don't get people, you don't get anything. So we help you with relationships and conversation. That's an amazing piece there. And then number 5 is clarity for your strategy. How do you purposely go from point A to point B? How do you help people do that? That's very helpful to move your life ahead. And then number 6 is looking at your convergence. How does it all come together? And so that's what we call our diploma program. And for those who want to go on, you can actually earn a master's degree. We can help you find the convergence. You get your master's in Christian leadership. And we have quite a few people who maybe did not get a master's earlier in life, and they feel like this would be really helpful to get that credential. And we have it specifically designed for people in the second half. So this is not your typical master's degree at all. It's one that really fits second half people, and it's very practically oriented. And so that's my passion. That's why I do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have a story or two that you'd like to share very quickly about someone who's been through the program? And going back to the comment about influence, because I think that's a significant piece and a significant transition, even recognizing that at a later stage in your life, you can be positioned to have greater influence and actually have greater kingdom impact than you ever thought possible in your younger life. Yeah. So if you have an example that you'd like to share, Dan, that would be great.
Sure. Well, I'm going to give you 3 just brief ones. One was a pastor who was in his late 50s, and he was let go from his church, and he thought he was just done with pastoring. He took Crest, he re-engaged, and he is now flourishing. He loves being a pastor. And he's actually been promoted as being an example of a great pastor in the second half of life. I thought, wow, love to see that. And then another person who was a pastor and got this stirring within. He was more concerned about people who weren't coming to his church, and they would never go to any church. And so he actually stopped being a traditional pastor and became one who started a network of house churches. And there are people go into his house churches that would never go to a normal church. And he loves these people. He prefers looking for the lost sheep than the ones that are nicely in the fold. And then I want to tell a third one.
All right.
This man was in his 40s, and his wife got cancer and died. Tragically died. He was just shaken. He came to Christ. He was just not sure about his life, what was going to do. And we helped him think through his life, and God's not done with you yet, in spite of tragedy. If you've had death in your family, or in your spouse, or you're divorced, or whatever, God is not done with you. You have not failed him. He says, I'll be with you, but you have to be willing to do the journey. So he did. And he turned his grief into a counseling. And he actually has a grief ministry today that just has given him a whole new life. Then God brought another gal into his life. He's got a second half of life and ministry that came out of all that difficulty. And today he's flourishing. So I love helping people do this journey.
It's amazing how many times the hurt that we experience in life is actually meant to be used to help others who are hurting in a similar way. And and just finding that way to flourish through that can be challenging when all you see, you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
You just see, because I've lived that myself, where I've just felt so frustrated, and this is not where I'm supposed to be, but yet I couldn't see anywhere else to be. And I'm sure some of the examples that you mentioned, there was that sense, that feeling that there's something else, but I don't know exactly where it is or how to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if I've felt that, and these people have felt that, I'm sure that some advisors on this call may be feeling that. And I'm certainly sure that some of their clients are feeling that.
That's right.
That's a lot of the reason that I wanted to have you on and have this discussion, because I think it's extremely valuable, not only for us personally, but for the people that we work with, for the people that God has brought into relationship with us.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lorne. I have enjoyed our friendship with you over the years, you and Kathy, but thank you for this invitation to be of help to your great people in Kingdom Advising.
Great. Dan, I really appreciate your time today. By the way, for everybody, next month, we are doing something with an accountant. I'm having an accountant on to talk about how financial professionals can work together with accountants. And I know we do have some accountants on the call today as well, in addition to advisors, but that's definitely going to be an interesting call. And that's going to be May the 4th. So maybe I should end with this by saying, may the 4th be with you. That's, if my kids were watching, they would definitely be saying that's a dad joke. So thanks very much, everyone. And by the way, if you want to connect with our study groups, please let me know, because the study group this month is amazing. So let me know, and let's get you connected with them. It's a different opportunity than this, where we actually get to connect and chat together. So iron is really sharpening iron. So I really appreciate it. So appreciate you being part of that. So Dan, thanks again for your time. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
I would love to do it. Thanks, Lorne.
Really appreciate it. God bless everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.